Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol, in someplace in the United States, which I assume you'll tell me in a minute.
Uh, Greetings from Fort Payne, Alabama, which is northeast Alabama, not far from Chattanooga. Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi fascists, and those dog faced pony soldiers.
All right. Now, what the heck are you doing in Alabama? That's like I thought you'd be in Louisiana, maybe, but
I'm on my way.
okay.
So we go jump in the car when we get done and drive the rest of it.
Okay. So this is the hotel pit stop or something
This is
here?
the hotel pit stop.
Okay.
A little more than halfway.
All right. Well, Spencer was right. You were heading out, so
Yep.
give him credit for that. All right. Well, today is apparently day 300 of the invasion of Ukraine, and I was listening to something the other day. Just so Brittany Griner was held for 294 days by the Russians. So now we're even past that. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, it doesn't look like there's really an end in sight. I mean, Putin is just sticking firm here, but on the other hand, it doesn't look good for him. I mean, they keep losing ground and they're not going anywhere.
Right. And, it's starting to be like that. The U.S. gave them some Patriot missiles, plans to give them some more. It's the big advantage right now that Russia has in this war is missiles and missile attacks on Ukraine. If you can stop or slow or, denude the missile effectiveness, they don't really have a lot left. Right. And they're going through men and material at a pretty high rate now. So, the Russians have stopped their draft, so they're not going to get any more. So it was widely ignored, and people ran out of the country to keep from doing it, and so forth. So, you're not going to get that. You're going to have to rely on the professional soldiers you already had doing a better job than they've been doing.
Yeah, that whole every time I think about that whole draft situation, the whole trying to put these people, it's just so crazy. I mean, you're basically taking all these civilians and you're going to try to turn them into some kind of soldier. So you don't. There's not enough time and training you can give them. If they're basically giving them a gun or whatever and throwing them out there. I mean, this is a suicide.
It was like 3 days. You got 3 days of training. And, there's a lot of situations that come up, and you can barely operate your equipment after 3 days, right? So, I mean, that's the thing is like these guys you can't use a lot of your equipment because the soldiers don't know how to use it. And that which you can use, they don't really know how to use it most effectively or protect themselves, right? Force protection. That's like our military is really focused on force protection, seeing how many of our people we can get home from these things. And the Russians can't. They're in a position now where they can't really worry about that. So they're taking on really heavy casualties, and they're not making a lot of progress.
Yeah, I mean, this is not like the wars from 50 years ago with equipment. I mean, military equipment has become so much more sophisticated. I mean, you were talking about the missiles. I mean, they have guidance systems. You need operators. I mean, you actually need skills to operate a drone, and things like this. You can't train somebody in 2 or 3 days to operate this equipment.
That's
So.
right.
And then if some of those some of the people who operated get killed off or whatever, then you're really kind of just messed up here. Plus the fact that all those people, as you said, a lot of people fled. They fled. They didn't want to go into this thing. So it's a royal miss for Putin.
Yeah, and it's also there's increasingly this war is being fought in Russia, right? There's starting to be attacks the other way. So that really puts you in a public relations problem within your own country. Is it's one thing it's like to visit this trouble on someone else, but when it's bringing trouble home, you're going to see a new view of this from the Russians, even more negative than they already hold it.
Yeah, it's amazing to see where this has gone. So it won't be. We're 2 months away roughly from the 1 year anniversary. Once again, so we can go back to our old phrase. Putin thought this was going to be a 2 or 3 day war, and now
Yeah.
now we're 297 plus more days in, and and it's going to go for a little bit longer. But they're also facing those harsh winter conditions.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know how much fighting will get done in the
Right,
next 3 or 4
exactly.
months.
Yeah, I
You're
mean, I
just
think
sitting there supplying the army, feeding all these guys, paying them, but they can't really make any progress with them.
yeah,
So
those are conditions that are brutal for either side to be battling in.
that's right. And the other thing about this is, and I think it's a really important thing is going on here, both with regard to the war on Ukraine within Russia and on the COVID policies within China. Right, these are governments that are used to getting their way and bullying all of dissent, killing anybody who runs their mouth. Right. And now you have a thing where the resistance is so big, the protest is so big that they can't ignore it. They can't bully it away. They can't just make it in. The Chinese are giving in on the COVID isolation stuff. Right. They've given up on zero COVID. They've said they're going to change their focus to treatment rather than prevention. Although they've also said, we're going to do another round of shots for everybody. But you're to the point now where, they have different shots than us. They're not on the Myrna. They're on an actual something that's actually attempts to be a vaccine. But the Chinese are giving in to the demands of the people to stop locking them down over this. So you have two of the biggest three geopolitical powers in the country right now knuckling under to citizen unrest.
All right, so we'll go there, and then I want to come back to something else that's still related to Ukraine, since you've mentioned it here. So yeah, so China has eased off. They've basically they've buckled to all the pressure. The zero COVID policies, which were just incredibly restrictive. I think we talked about the deaths in that apartment building where they had sealed the doors shut, and people died in a fire and things like that. So they were suffering on a PR front and everything like this. Now the other side of it, apparently, they've seen a huge spike in COVID deaths. There are hours long wait. Cars are pulling up in front of crematoriums and waiting hours to have bodies cremated. Funeral homes are overwhelmed and things like this. But the end. I guess in one sense, the government can say, "See, this is what happens when we relax things." On the other hand, it's like, part of the problem has been is that there has been no immunity to this, right?
Right. This is what this is what happens when you let government run healthcare, right? When government make big healthcare decisions for everybody, because government has made some profoundly bad decisions here. In the United States, more than 90% of us have had COVID. One of either the OG COVID like me or some variant down the line. Right. So, we have immunity. We're not going to really have a whole lot more people die of COVID who wouldn't have died of something else during that period. Right. Any virus that got a hold of them, they were weakened to a point where they were in danger over it. Right. So, that's a little bit different than what we had before. But they are in the stage now where we were, May 2020. Right. Where it's a brand new thing and all kinds of people are getting it who never had it. There's no immunity. There's nothing in the community at all, right? It built up about this. So everyone who gets it is getting it for the first time and, trying it on their immune system and seeing what happens. And apparently, some races or whatever are less able to recover from it than others. And it looks like the Chinese are one of the ones that it's harder on, I guess in the US it was harder on black people than white people, but it looks like it's harder on the Chinese than it is on most of the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I wonder, whether or not, besides the fact that they haven't been able to build up any immunity because they've been in this crazy lockdown situation, but their vaccine apparently is also not nearly as effective as anything that we've tried. So that's been some reports there. and then you just have an aging population in China too. I think a lot of the deaths have occurred with a lot of the older people. They have a lot of older people who are going to be. I mean, we lost a lot of older people here too. They're highly susceptible, just like they are to the flu and all these other viruses that go around. So all of a sudden it's bam. Look, we just came out of Thanksgiving, and people gather together. Yeah, I mean, I think case counts for COVID, rose after that, but it didn't explode, right? I mean, we don't have this massive crisis on our hands. We have learned to understand and live with all of this. We have RSV, we have the flu, and it's kind of like, depends upon how you want to classify it. I think the Chinese are trying to now redefine what's a COVID death now and all this kind of stuff. But they kind of need to go through this period of, they've got to expose people to this to be able to get a handle of this. Because, if they go back into a zero lockdown situation, they haven't done anything.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know how effective our vaccines were, but they bought us time to get everybody through the system, right? Yeah. Everyone's had it one way or the other now, either, a variant or something, right? And so, like, we've survived it. And so, I see these things, people say, well, I caught COVID for the fourth time and I've taken 3 boosters or whatever. But at least it's not as bad as it would have been. How do you know what it would have been, right? You don't really, you have no way of knowing. But on the other side of that is, they have, we are further down, like, taking these steps, right? So the more that goes on, the more this gets in the rearview mirror. They essentially stopped the rearview mirror, right? They've essentially said, we're not going to, we're going to freeze this in place. So now, they have to go through those stages that we went through that were painful stages. And we really didn't understand what all we were dealing with. The rest of the world does know now, and it probably is willing to help. I mean, I think the U.S. would help them if we were asked, right, with how we dealt with this. But you remember, like, you're right. Older people, like in the United States, the median age, the age at which equal number of people older than this and equal number of people younger than this died of COVID was 86 and a half. So half the people who died of COVID were 86 and a half or older. Okay. And in the United States, we a lot of people that age are in some kind of institutionalized facility, some kind of care, right? Where in China, there's very little of that. There's very little of the notion of an old folks home is not common in China at all. It's those people stay with their family. So, for better or for worse, if they get sick, they're going to get all the care that a caring kid and the kid's family can give you. But, it's not going to be medically focused. It's not going to be trained professionals. Maybe that's, maybe that doesn't hurt them. Maybe it even helps them. But, they're not dealing with it as we are.
Yeah, that it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's definitely kind of an Asian thing. I mean, you can look at Asian societies, and it is take care of your older ones, your parents or your grandparents. I mean, very common in most of Asia to do that, so that generations of families will live together in that kind of case.
Interesting. And benefit from that experience,
Yeah.
And I think it's one thing they do way better than us. We throw our old people away. We don't want to talk to them. Even like you watch these holiday things. It's like, okay, talk to your grandmother for 5 minutes, right? Make sure you spend the whole 5 minutes, listen to what she has to say, right? And then that's all you got to do. Then you can go do whatever you want. You can get back on your phone or go watch a movie or whatever, right? I mean, so the value that those people bring to your lives, in the United States, we're saying we don't really care. It's like, we don't care what you think. And it's like, you're missing out on a lot of experience. You're missing out on a lot of knowledge. You're missing out on a lot of things that would make your life richer. Now that I'm old, I'm mad about the word the old.
As we get into that age, and a few more years, you could be a grandparent. Who knows?
It's happening. It's coming at me.
Could happen in a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I
saw one of my coaching friends had posted on Facebook. His daughter got married, and like walking her down the aisle. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't see that. My daughter's not thinking in those terms, but she will
to
be.
fathom sometimes. But one of the other things about Asian culture is that with older people is that they tend to be respected, right? I mean, actually, society, it's not just the family, but others in the society, they respect the older people for their wisdom and for the experience and all of these kinds of things. And the knowledge.
Richard Pryor used to say, "You don't get to be old being no fool."
Right. And it's true. On the one hand, there's a rich experience for having to live with your grandparents or your parents or whatever that may be. On the other hand, as you're talking about, I mean, medically, are they getting the best care? That is definitely questionable. On the other side of that, though, too, on the institutions, I mean, those kinds of institutions, as you said, they're not really that common, not like they are here in the United States in terms of nursing homes and facilities. There are some, but not a lot of them. They're not as ubiquitous. While they can get care there for the different levels of things. I mean, now we see in the United States, there's a huge expanding memory care, facilities now going on because so many people are coming down or being diagnosed with dementia, memory issues. But the other part of it too, yeah, the other part too is that it's kind of like a hospital, though, right? I mean, there are germs that are within those facilities. Sometimes that actually speeds up your demise, depending upon where you're at. There's not a one size fits all answer. You talk about the vaccine. Yeah, okay. I had 2 shots, mainly because I'm older, and it was preventative care. Did it work in the end? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it hasn't killed you, right?
Right. I'm
ever
alive.
get COVID?
That's fine. But we have a friend of ours, somebody we know, and she's older, and she's just coming out of COVID for the second time, and she says, well, I had the sniffles. It's fine, but she didn't say that. She didn't say it could have been a lot worse, which is people have this, thanks to the media and a lot of other things. They say, oh well, if you don't get the shot, and then you get COVID, you could be facing imminent death. However, if you get the shot, you might get flu-like symptoms and you'll be okay in a few days. But everybody,
there's no truth to that. I mean, that's what they've been said, but that's not at all.
Right. I mean, look, our physiology is different from person to person to person. Yeah. You cannot make those blanket statements about that, and there's not enough empirical evidence to say that would be the case.
That's right.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing there to see. We will have to watch and see what China does with regard to this. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think if they look to us and said we need your help, we would provide that. That would be humanitarian effort on our part to do something good. And I don't have a problem with that and all. All right. So I want to step back. I just want to say one more thing here on this Ukraine thing, because we also have Zelensky is here, right? I mean, he's coming today.
Yeah, speaking tonight before Congress.
So that's a thing. Right on the heels here too of what you were talking about. You're talking about what looks like we're planning on providing Patriot missiles and a lot of kit, missile guidance kit things for them and stuff like that. So what is it? It's a pretty good chunk of change that we're going to commit to again, which is fine with me. I have no problem with this. And Zelensky,
we're still in the, so to clear that up, like it's not just let's pour a lot of money into Ukraine for no reason, right? But you're degrading one of the great geopolitical powers in the world, for pennies on the dollar. I mean, you're never going to get a better bargain. And we're not even having to do the fighting or endure the destruction, right? All we're doing is spending a little money and causing the Russians a ton of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that's been part of the problem for Putin too, is that the West has poured in lots of material and money into the effort, and it has really been, it's really kind of stopped them in their tracks. They gain some ground and then they lose ground. I mean, they're going backwards mostly now after some initial gains, and it's just that the Russians are being drained because the West is standing up to them and saying, no more. And I don't think we would be. I don't think the West. If Zelensky is an interesting guy, but I mean, because of his persona and the thing that he said and done and how he stood up there, and he's kind of, he's just been kind of in the thick of it. If things had not gone well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much support the West would have given him, and that way. But because the resistance was so good so early on,
looks winnable.
Yeah, it does. It does. It gives the other country saying like, okay, we've been dealing with Russia for years. This is a chance.
Yeah. I mean, it caused a lot of trouble for, it's starting to add up a little. I think it's close to $100 billion now, but still, I mean, when we have gamed out what it would take to destroy the Russians in the past, $100 billion was not even the down payment. So, we're still making out pretty good on this.
So, we've talked about this a little bit too, is that, we have some Republicans in Congress. I don't know how many are still there from the, that'll be there in the next Congress, that were kind of the anti-Ukraine support group there in a sense. But do you see them being more problematic in the next Congress for future aid requests?
Well, part of me is like, I listened to Walter Mondale was talking about something along these lines one time. And he's like, well, we were coming into office. We had won our election. We were getting ready to take office. Him and Carter were, we're going to undo all these foreign policy shibboleths, and we're going to change the whole playing board, right? And we got all these things we want to do. He said, then they sit you down for what they called the briefing, right? And they show you who has what pointed at whom, right? And like who could do the most damage and how they would do it, right? He goes, we saw the briefing and we realized why things are what they are. And most of what we had on our little list, we did away with. So, I think that's something like that is coming when they really get to see the facts, that you're going to see. I don't think you'll see support for it because so many of them are so invested in opposing it, and they're so deeply on the record now for opposing it. But I do think you could see. I think it'll happen. I think the money will come through.
What was their reasoning? I mean, was this part of just a pushback on the Democrats as a whole? I mean,
I've been trying to sort it out, and I have not found anything beyond any more noble in this than if Biden's for it, we're against it, right?
Right.
And it's like that's not really what people want. When Biden's right, he's right, and he's right to pursue this. He's right to try to stop this. And so, you support them when they're right. That's the whole thing. If you want to be trusted calling out people when they're wrong, you've got to admit it when they're right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've been around long enough. I mean, you can't just be this dogmatic person saying, because they're for it, I'm against it every time. There are times when the people that we don't really care for, like the certain Democrats and things like that, they say things that are actually the correct thing. So go ahead and support them on this, or they're on the right track, support them, and not be quite so tied into this whole thing.
That's also, I mean, people underestimate the political power of that, right? So if you are every once in a while admitting that they're right, okay, then it's like, I'm not just here being disagreeable. I'm actually evaluating this stuff. I'm actually thinking about it. And when I agree with them, I say I agree with them. I'm not afraid of that. And I don't think people should be afraid of that. I think there's a lot to be gained by just admitting you agree to stuff.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so here's something that Biden might not be right on. Title 42.
Well, that's another one where, we don't totally have right on our side either. So what Title 42 is it says if there's, a disease spreading, we can just deport people. We don't have to give them asylum hearings unless we understand, unless we think they have a decent chance of achieving, of prevailing in an asylum hearing, which, so people understand. Almost everyone comes to our southern border, a lot who applies for asylum, they're economic migrants. In the United States, you can say, well, we should let them in because they're poor and whatever. But the only way you can get asylum as a way to get in the United States is you have to prove that the government is a threat to your life, like they will kill you or harm you or whatever if you go back to your country. So then then you can say, okay, we're saving them from persecution. You can be in the U.S. And that doesn't, the people at the border, that doesn't apply to them. They're leaving because they're in a poor, bad place and they're trying to go for a better life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand where they're coming from, but asylum is not how they have to enter the country. So what is being talked about here is Title 42 allowed you to keep them out because of the disease. Now, Republicans, in no other sphere of public policy are we arguing that there should still be COVID restrictions, right? Am I correct? Is there any other COVID restriction we want to keep on the books? I don't think so. So this one is included. Now, the problem is if you take this one off, you're looking at 15,000 people a day trying to get into the U.S. southern border. So the notion is keep this restriction on until we have a plan B. And the administration doesn't have a plan B. They do, and this is another thing that's like an important little moment of progress here. They do acknowledge this is a problem, right? They have not even acknowledged that that the people pouring over the border was bad for the U.S. or something that we should get worried about and address until this. But now they are saying, yeah, let's do something that slows down this traffic.
Yeah, I mean, this you're right about this. I mean, this the reasons for keeping this, in terms of the health policy. I mean, we're talking about COVID. That's kind of it's always been like this, but the problem for the administration is that if by letting that go, by basically ending Title 42, there will be a surge. I mean, the mayor in El Paso is attracting a lot of attention because he's talking about 2,500 people a day are coming right now.
Yeah,
he's expecting to go to 5,000. And they're at 2,500. They're already overwhelmed. They've got people living all over the place. They can't handle it. There's some people are being bussed out, but this guy's a Democrat and he's drowning. I mean, he's drowning in all these people, and he can't do it. And one of the pieces of the Biden plan to try, once Title 42 does end, is that they'll have like this enforcement surge at the border. Like,
right, to do what?
Exactly, what is that?
and why are you surging it? Why wasn't it there to start with?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you kind of look at this list of things that's like, but why wasn't this already in place beforehand? Why are you waiting for this to end to say this is going to be the solution? It's like,
the other thing is, if you look at what's happening in El Paso, right? The wall is here. The wall is here. There's this gap. They all walk through the gap. Literally $5,000 more. You close that gap, and you got to go somewhere else. But no, we can't do that. It's inhumane to have that wall. Right? What's going on now is what's inhumane. That's what people don't understand. With the inhumane part is letting this thing go on.
Yeah, and and I think CNN had done a report that I saw this morning. I was kind of briefly looking at it when I was out at the gym, and it seemed to me, for the pieces I was watching, it's they've got people down there, in El Paso, and they're talking to some of the people who've made it across, and some of the sob stories. And my heart goes out for these people. I mean, no people, there's hardship. There is economic hardship. But as you have pointed out, that is not a reason to get asylum. You get political asylum because of the danger that you will get killed or whatever if you go back to your country. But it's not because you have got some economic hardship. That is not a reason to gain asylum in the United States. I feel for these people. But CNN was definitely playing up that angle about the hardships they were facing. What are we supposed to do about that? I mean, when are we supposed to solve all of that too? I mean, is that all?
Well, I mean, Trump was working on that. He had his kind of rolling on that, right? He had the deals with the Northern Triangle countries where we gave economic assistance, and we talked to countries who could, companies in the U.S. who could relocate there or build a branch there or whatever to provide jobs, and to keep the people from having to leave, right? And we were making some progress on that, and all that was shut down day one by the Biden administration.
Well, we still have Kamala. I think she's still in charge down there, right?
She's the border czar. I've been to the border, but she's the czar.
It's been so effective.
But that's the other thing is that was kind of smart of Biden, because there's always like these things. You're always thinking about the backup quarterback, theory, right? Where, the quarterback does bad, was like, let's see what the backup could do. Maybe the backup's better. Well, we know the backup is utterly inept. She can't be president now.
Is she really QB2 or she QB3 or somebody from the taxi squad?
Yeah. She can't be president. She blew her chance.
Yeah, there's an opportunity that she did not take advantage of it at all with that. But so, now it's before the Supreme Court. I mean, the Supreme Court said they were going to look at it. I guess the Biden administration said they wanted to postpone this till after Christmas or whatever, right? The decision. Right. Any feelings about whether or not the Supreme Court will find that this policy needs to be remaining in place, though?
They're kind of hard to read. They may agree to a delay and say it's not that many people are wrong, and if the government's better able to respond, that wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't drive me to the ramparts either.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you're looking at something that you're talking about, the potential for disease or whatever, unless these Republican states that are in this suit, that are trying to stop Title 42 from ending, unless they can really prove to the court that this is a public health threat, I just don't know that the Supreme Court's going to go along with them. That I think it's inevitable that President Biden had said that it's over, except for the fact that he keeps extending the student loan deals and all of this stuff.
Right. But never really over with Joe.
Yeah, it's not really over, but it's over. There's enough pronouncements out there that I don't know. The Supreme Court could easily say, there's just no basis for this, and that needs to end.
Yeah.
So, and then it does put the burden on the Biden administration to figure out what to do. I mean, it's in some senses, Title 42 gave the Biden administration some cover on this issue.
Protected them, yeah. So they're working on it, but they don't have anything. They don't. It's not really how they think. Right. So it's hard for them to come up with something.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Okay, so we've got the spending deadline or the budget deadline here coming up on Friday. They'd kicked the can down the road from last week to this week. $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill. What is it? 4,155 pages. I think Rand Paul wheeled the whole thing out there for the cameras or something. And this is another case of like this is not something we haven't seen before with Congress. It's like who reads this stuff?
Right. So everybody reads their little section, right? All the special interest people, they're like, Section 79 looks pretty good. We got what we wanted, So no one's reading. The people reading 79 are not reading 78 or 80, right? They're reading 79. So you have all those kind of things. This covers them for almost a year, right? It's like next December that it would run out. So they're basically saying the first half of the time the Republicans control the House, they'll have no say over spending at all, right? Because it's all programmed from here on out, right? What I don't understand is what the heck is Mitch McConnell doing? Right? How does it help Republicans to pass a year-long, essentially, omni? Right? I don't get it. This is a chance to make everything a fight on our priorities, right? Make them either reject our priorities or and explain why, or enact them. But it's just like let's punt on second down, just to make sure nothing bad happens. And I don't get it. Like I've always been like, this guy is a brilliant, backroom dealer. He's very good leader. He's very good about the function of being the leader, and he's been really brilliant in the minority, right, where he's stalled a bunch of stuff, made things a lot more difficult on the Democrats than they might have been otherwise. But this is playing for them. I don't get the benefit for Republicans out of this at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on this. I mean, McConnell, I mean, you have definitely heaped a lot of praise on him over the years for the brilliant politician that he is, about how he's been able to manage and maneuver things throughout the years. but this is a little bit, just kind of makes you just kind of scratch your head a little bit, because it's only a few more weeks before the Republicans take over.
Yeah, just
Like,
get us to March, and then we do another one.
Yeah, I mean,
we get to say what's in it,
Right. I mean, you go ahead and do like a 2-month or 3-month deal or whatever, that, and then let the new Congress kind of settle in and everything like this, and then let them attack it, and let's work on this, but to give them any more time than that, to give basically to sign off on what the Democrats want for that period of time,
for half their term is gone.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, and just, I don't know. I mean, but you just look at this, just the massive amount of government spending that we continue to have in this country, and as we probably are facing, going right into the teeth of a recession type of thing like that. This is not going to go well. And what are the Republicans going to wind up doing if they punt on this, they kick this on? Exactly what power do they have coming up in 2023?
Right. You've got no leverage at all. You can't demand anything. You voted half your term away before you even got in office, and it's being done by people who are going to still be there. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to do this. All right, I know one of your favorite things here is January 6th Commission. So they're wrapping things up. They've made a criminal referral of Donald Trump to the DOJ. I don't know that the DOJ is going to do anything necessarily. They're throwing, the Democrats right now, knowing that they're losing control of Congress and whatnot, they're throwing a lot of stuff. They're moving and getting a lot of stuff out there. But I don't know that there's really anything there at this point in time that that Trump's got to worry about.
The original sin of that was not letting Jordan and who was it? There was one more, Louis Gohmert or somebody, be on the committee, right? They would have mucked it up, but then you'd really be trying facts, right? And sometimes that they would have the upper hand, and they would put down your contention, but sometimes they wouldn't. And the Trump fans would have had to admit that there was a point, right? But what you had was a show trial with no adversary at all, right? So now it can all be written off as a show trial, as a PR stunt. And so they did a lot of hard work that they punted it all on that one decision. That's another thing. Before we go away on this, another thing that's ending here, right, is the Speaker of the House, right? We're going to get a new speaker. We don't know who it is. We suspect it'll be McCarthy, but it may not be, because the people who won't vote for him are pretty intractable, have not shown any willingness to change their minds on that. So that's another thing. People keep acting like this is going to all go away. They'll fold, but they haven't said they'll fold yet. So we don't know. But assuming it's McCarthy, what you're reading now, what you're seeing is this total hagiography treatment of Pelosi, of this current speaker. Pelosi, she won majority votes with raw majority power. There was no finesse there, right? There was no backroom things that made things happen that were beyond reach, right? She did what was scripted for her to do. She is going to go down in history. And I think that people honestly look at this and think about what she actually did as Speaker of the House is one of the most overrated politicians ever on any level of government, right? It just is, there's this, Nancy did this and that. Nancy was the top vote of a majority. The majority had already decided things before it hit the floor. She was she practiced the Hastert rule, right? So that she didn't even design the things she benefited from. So when we talk about that, this is somebody what is she really famous for? Wearing white, tearing up the speech, stomping out of meetings, right? Her thing was to be disagreeable, was to put on a show of how right she was and everybody else was wrong. Not constructive, not someone who deserves 5 minutes of our time when she's out of office.
Yeah, she didn't have to and didn't want to reach across the aisle and do anything.
Just petty and stupid. And
didn't want to do anything bipartisan at all. So
kind of the whole party in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very much so with that. And Democrats will have new leadership in the minority, and we'll see how that goes. They're going to be younger, but probably more radical in a lot of
Right,
ways.
they are. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see that dynamic work out for that. But yeah, you're right about the whole this thing. It's kind of all hail Nancy Pelosi.
For
She,
what?
yeah.
She was a hack. She was a Democrat hack, right? She was the chief hack. Yay, you. You know.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, she definitely will be missed by conservatives and Republicans along the lines, and we'll have to wait and see what this next Congress winds up doing, and whether or not it'll be McCarthy. I mean, it's Republicans have got to figure out who they want our leadership, but obviously the media and the Democrats they're going like, oh yeah, we can't wait to see them fight about this one.
Right, and however it comes out, what we have said is this is not the kind of leadership we want. Right, we do not want a guy who's compromised. Right, as McCarthy obviously is. We want someone who's purely, fully on our side.
All right. So what about the Trump tax return? So apparently the Ways and Means Committee has voted to release the Trump tax returns from 2015 to 2020.
In the hopes that someone can find something in them that they did not.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, in essence, I mean, what did they find out? I mean, what was the big reveal?
Nothing.
That he has a lot of entities.
He has a lot of businesses. He makes a lot of money. He pays his taxes. There was no way that if he was cheating on taxes or lying about income, that it wouldn't have already been out. It would have been leaked, right? Somebody put one of his tax returns in Rachel Maddow's mailbox a few years ago, right? And you can tell from the stuff that's coming out of the Twitter files that the people inside government were fully comfortable with working against Trump, by legal or illegal means, right? Anything to undermine him, they had no compunction about doing. So when you say, they wouldn't do this, of course they would do that, right? If there was something wrong on Trump's tax return, we would already know about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they said was that they did not audit him properly during the time he was president.
But that's not his fault, right? It wasn't, I mean, the IRS was not on his side when he was president.
Yeah,
right? We can recount the things that happened there and prove it. But the IRS is run by government bureaucrats. They are not Trump's friends, as you are finding out from Twitter files every day.
Yeah, it's not, they want to think like this is some big bombshell or whatever, but it hasn't been at all.
They keep looking for bombshells. They keep, we got him now. It's like, yeah, you don't. He didn't do anything.
Yeah. So it's much ado about nothing, in this regard. And Trump, he's a businessman, lots of businesses. The tax laws say you can write off and carry forward losses, and there's lots of ways to create those losses legitimately, and they follow the rules and they do that, and therefore you pay whatever tax is due based on that. And that, I mean, our tax laws are based, for corporations to help grow the businesses, to hire people, grow your business, and do things.
But everybody in that line does what Trump does.
Right. I mean, this is nothing. There's nothing unusual there. It's the way to do it. But if for the Democrats, it's like, oh no, the rich just get richer, and there's just too many people. There's too much inequality out there, et cetera, with all of this, and it doesn't work for them. Of course, a lot of them, same people that say that, have got plenty of business interests, or they own stock in companies that take full advantage of the tax laws. But
that's one thing Nancy Pelosi, who's very good at speaker, is insider trading, right?
Yeah,
very good at it.
They don't mind criticizing that, but this like don't investigate them. Don't actually criticize them for the things that they've done with regard to that. Yeah, you mentioned the Twitter files. I mean, we just keep getting more and more and more on that. You got to give as mercurial as Elon Musk can be, you got to give him credit for basically being transparent on this,
Yeah.
and just showing the world, what the behind the scene machinations that have gone on.
Right.
Amazing.
So let's talk about what's come out there. So it looks like the FBI was paying Twitter millions of dollars to censor every little thing that came across the internet about Biden and Trump. Leave and enhance the Biden stuff. Censor and what do you call it? Disenfranchise. Well, yeah, that. But I mean, lower their reach, de-amplify, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're the conservatives. Any good news? Yeah, I've been thinking about this too. So as I was talking to people, the campaign was winding down in 2020. I would say things, and they're like, "That's not true." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's not true?" It's like, I've never heard that. And so that kept happening to me. And it's like, okay, people are not getting wide swaths of the information you need to cast a vote in this election. And it's like someone is preventing them from hearing any good news about Trump, right? Somebody is turning off the spigot to where all they hear is bad news. And it's like, that's kind of a, I don't want to go conspiracy theory, but that, that appears to be what's happened is these people are just not aware of things that, stories that reflect well on Trump or badly on Biden. The laptop is the most famous of them, but there was a bunch of others too. And it's like, how did that happen? And so I think what happened is they were pretty thorough. It's looked like the FBI has hundreds of people working on censoring every little bit of content that goes through social media. Meanwhile, fentanyl is pouring over the border, human trafficking, kidnapping, all these things are going on everywhere. But we're worried about, they better not say anything negative about Joe Biden, right? So that the COVID policy, they just ditched anybody who told the truth about COVID policy. They made those decisions, and those decisions, especially the COVID decisions, cost people their lives. People died because of what Twitter did and how they did it, and they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, I don't know where the end of these Twitter files are. I mean, the media has complained that, they wanted to see it all at once. Musk has been basically kind of getting it out slowly, and he's chosen different journalists.
I couldn't care less about their complaints, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, same here. I mean, it's just, but this is where Musk shows, some of his PR skills too. Promotion skills is that he keeps this whole story alive. I mean, if you dump the entire thing at once, it kind of comes and goes. There's a lot of stuff, but
it's easy to brush it all aside.
Yeah, but by keeping this going, this is why the media doesn't like this, is because it continues to keep the story alive and embarrass the administration and embarrasses the media. All the things that they have supported and propped up, are being exposed here. And so, here's Elon Musk, the former hero of the left, now being vilified for doing this act. And it's just, I never know what Elon is going to think from one moment to the next. I mean, he is just such an interesting figure.
Yeah.
But he has tried to open up Twitter, in that sense, to say, we really have to kind of show that we can't do this, and I think I've said this before, it puts a lot of pressure on other social media companies that have probably done the same thing in terms of censorship and all this. It's like, if Twitter did it, then you can't, the others must have,
right.
And there has been some, evidence that supports that. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't, Elon Musk is not making the Mark Zuckerbergs, of the world happy, by doing this. There's been a massive cover up here, and there's just the levels it's gone to have been amazing. It's been pretty much crickets as far as I'm concerned from the administration. A lot of others, they really want to try to brush this aside, but it's pretty hard when it just keeps coming at you.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, I think there's, and there could be more, right? But I think you've opened up, there's going to have to be now an honest look at how we handled COVID in the country that won't reflect well on Dr. Fauci. There's going to have to be an honest look at what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop, which will include going through the laptop and charging people appropriately if the, you know, if it's appropriate, right? And environmental policy. I think you're going to see, you know, the lies about that coming out. You haven't seen that yet on the Twitter files. I think that's, you know, I think that could be part 9 is, you know, the way that they totally put their figures on the scales of that, and they don't allow truth, and they force you to read things that aren't true.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that the Biden, you know, Hunter Biden laptop story hasn't gotten more traction after this. But, you know, maybe the new Congress will see
about
something.
to, yeah,
Yeah, you know, this will become a focus. I mean, this once again back to your old adage, you know, elections have consequences, and so, you know, Democrats spent, you know, several years here going after Trump and everything like this, and really didn't come up with much of anything. There's a lot more meat there on the Biden bone.
That's right.
That we've got to explore here. So, and you know, which could have an effect on the 2024 election.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, by the time everybody stretches their muscles out and gets all this stuff down and reads it and starts writing reports on it, when will it be? Probably about 2024.
Yeah.
So it could be, you know, if I'm the Democrats, I'm seeing who else is available, because Biden might not be available. He might not be able to run for president by then.
So Musk has now said that, you know, he will step down as CEO after his poll. I'm not, you know, I don't know with Musk that he, you know, did he really think he was going to win that poll, or is it, you know, part of it is a, you know, a PR thing on him. He had 17 million people voted. Who knows how many of those might have been bots, you know, because there's still a bunch of bots running around on Twitter. But he said something to the effect that, you know, when somebody who is foolish enough to take the post, he'll step down. Even if he does find a CEO, you know, I don't think that CEO is going to be all that independent from Musk.
Right. I think I think that's what happened. I will say this too. The other side of that is that's a brash thing to put on the internet. Vote on whether I should still be the boss of Twitter. Right. It's like that might have been one where you sit down 15 or 20 minutes and think about it before you do it.
Yeah.
You know, Les Miles used to say the rule of 8. Like before you hit send on a social media, count to 8. You know, I think that's well right. I think that was one that where, you know, that was ill considered.
Yeah, but it also is not totally out of character for Musk.
Not out of character,
right?
You know, if you're going to make a lot of those kind of decisions, you're going to make some bonehead mistakes, and I think that was a mistake.
All right, and I think since we last talked, I think Sinema resigned in that, or she changed parties or affiliation. I mean, kind of shook up the Democrats a little bit, right? I don't see. I mean, I think she votes with the Democrats most of the time anyway. As you know, I don't know that she's going to change all that much on that.
Well, she's less down the line Democrat than a lot of them,
right? And it is a political calculus for her reelection in 2024.
Well, could be good, could be bad on that point, because it allows the Democrats to run a candidate. So now she'd be going against 2 candidates.
Yeah,
it doesn't have the party support and party poll workers and unions and all that kind of stuff, right? All those people that will go work for any Democrat candidate don't necessarily have to do anything to help her, since she's an independent. So, but I think something a lot more important than that is going on here. You know, will it help her or hurt her? It's hard to say. You know, is there a Democrat in Arizona who could upset the apple cart on this? I don't know. I don't know one off the top of my head. They talk about Ruben Gallego, the water guy from you know the deaths. You know, but I don't see him winning a statewide race. Right? I think he's to the left of what's acceptable in Arizona. But what she is saying, and she may be sacrificing her political career to say it, is that the people who, you know, are not in either party also deserve a voice, right? That we're increasingly a country of independence, right? The political parties are losing their hold on Americans for a number of reasons, right? And she's saying, there ought to be a third thing. There ought to be people out there saying, the right answer is not the Democrat or Republican answer. It's, us working together and figuring things out and so forth, and, move it to a less ideological base, right? We're deciding how to spend money here, right? It's not really, we're deciding like what's worthy of tax dollars. We're deciding, what we're going to do about old people and the border and defense. And these are things that should not, there shouldn't be a partisan X and a partisan Y. There should be cooperation, working together. And it's interesting. She's trying to kind of put herself as a leader of the, D-Party America movement. And there might be some sympathy for that out there in the world. I won't say there's not, because there's a lot of people who are interested in decoupling all this from the parties. And she was sort of uniquely situated to do it. So it'll be interesting to see like what happens on that.
Well, I mean, if she wins re-election in 2024 as an independent in Arizona, that could have ramifications.
Right. You'll see it down the line. You'll see other people dealing with that. I don't know, why is Rand Paul a Republican, right? He doesn't really agree with much the Republicans do. And, Rand Paul ends up a lot of the time, trying to hold the Republicans to their supposed ideals, right? And he's alone on an island doing that. So maybe he's just like, I'm the guy who truly believes this stuff.
Yeah. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. All right. Let's wrap it up. Last word.
What did we not get to? A couple of things. First of all, Mike Leach, one of a kind guy, one of my favorite football coaches of all time. Member of your church, which does not, is certainly not the typical LDS guy. But he was like, for one thing, if you know, I don't know if you noticed this, but like almost every picture printed of Mike Leach after this, he's holding a cup of coffee. He's a coffee drinking dude. So we will miss him. I love people like that in sports who, don't take themselves or what they're doing all that seriously. It is a game, right? And there is a lot of stuff. I mean, to be at the highest levels of it, you've got to spend a lot of time and effort on it. But you also have to take an effect that like, nothing changes whether Mississippi State goes, 8-4 or 7-5. It just doesn't, right? Just not that big a deal. So, he's very good. He was very good at that. He's a memorable guy. Franco Harris, I guess he died today or yesterday. Of course, brilliant running back for the Steelers. Made one of the most famous plays in NFL history when the ball bounced off. Terry Bradshaw threw a long pass. I think it was intended for Lynn Swann. It bounced off the defensive back's leg into Franco Harris' hands and ran in for like the immaculate reception, it was known as. The only time I ever met him was he came to Shreveport one time to honor Bradshaw. So they were doing something for Bradshaw, and he showed up for it. But like he was, I remember him. They had a big Bronco, and the door to the Bronco opened. And, this is Louisiana. Franco Harris from Pennsylvania, right? And the side that he was on was swarmed with people coming up for autographs, and he sat there and signed everyone. So my memory of him is good. Also, Merry Christmas to everybody. And thank you for watching us. And, we have a lot of fun doing this. And those of you who take part, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Mike Leach was, like you said, a unique guy. I loved the stories that came out after his passing. Some of the things that he did with just ordinary people, in essence. He gave time to a lot of people who never thought they'd get the time from him, and really reached out and did things. And his love of pirates. So he was quite a unique individual. And unfortunately, he was only 61 when he passed away. Franco Harris, as you mentioned, he was 72, so he was a little older than us. But 72 is not old in our world at all. No. But
obviously, stop talking about this happening to people at 72.
Yeah, but obviously part of that great Steelers teams with Bradshaw and Swan and Stallworth and Mean Joe Green, all those people, some of the greats, Jack Ham. So we had, it's a memorable time, and we're definitely of the age where we remember that from our childhood of some of the great football of our time.
That's right.
with those guys. Yes, and obviously, yes, I echo your sentiments on Christmas. Obviously, you're heading for a Christmas in Louisiana. Is that what it is,
Yep.
right? So that'll be fun. Hopefully, you avoid the bomb. There's no bomb cyclone coming your way. I think it's all north.
Well, so like me and Marty wanted to go see the Independence Bowl there on Friday, right? The high temperature at Shreveport on Friday is 23 degrees. Right, we are going to get frozen. It is about to be.
It's going to be like 23 or 24 here over the weekend, I think. So
yeah, but the high in Shreveport, Louisiana, the low is in single digits. It's like 8 or 9. I mean, we don't, they get that kind of cold sometimes, but like it's been since the Christmas of 2000 since it's been this cold in the South at Christmas.
Yeah, it's I'm not looking forward to the cold Christmas, but then again, if I don't get ice and snow and a bunch of other things, that's fine. I mean, look, I had my youngest son had called me up last week to ask me about something. And one of the things he asked me was that whether or not I had a chance to use the snow thrower that he bought. So his brilliant idea this year was that rather than have all these gifts, for birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, whatever, he got together with his siblings and they bought a Snow Joe snow thrower because he thought that might help me in my aging body when I get that. And I thought that's great.
Good for them.
Said, no, haven't had to use it. And he goes, well, that's too bad. And I'm like, no, actually, this is perfect.
It's better not used.
If I never have to take it out of the box, it'll be a great gift.
That's right. Global warming.
That's right. I'm all for it. He thinks maybe that they've wasted some money. I'm like, I have enough time left that it'll come around.
It'll come around in
time, but I'm willing to delay this as long as possible.
That's right.
Anyway, once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you do have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to those that are celebrating Hanukkah at this time. We have another show next week, and then we'll wrap up the year. But as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And God bless America as we head into the holidays. Thanks, everybody.